What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kennahan, and we haven't had an emergency pod for quite some time, but Adam Peters has me sitting here at 7 p.m. on a Saturday night recording this. So the Washington Commanders have traded for star San Francisco wide receiver Deebo Samuel. They're trading away a fifth-round pick. It is yet to be said. I'm keeping my eyes on, but it is yet to be said if that fifth-round pick is from 2025, which belongs to New Orleans, or if that is a fifth-round pick in future years. But the combine is when a lot of things start to get done because all of the NFL world is in one place at one time, and Adam Peters got things done in Indianapolis this week. I'm assuming his relationships with the staff in San Francisco helped him facilitate this trade for Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, of course, a great wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, someone who many people have kind of tied to Washington over the last few weeks, especially since it was becoming obvious that Washington needed a wide receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin. Deebo Samuel is coming off a 51 catch, 670 yard, and 3 touchdown season. He had over 800 total yards and 4 touchdowns on the year in 2024. So again, he's not what he once was. His 2021 form, he's probably never going to get back to that. But he is a great piece for Washington's offense, and we saw it down the stretch of the season and in the playoffs. Jane Daniels and that offense, it was great what Daniels could do with the weapons he was given, but Washington needed to upgrade, and Deebo Samuel coming in as but probably the wide receiver 2 now for the Washington Commanders is definitely a big bonus and a big boost over who they had before. De'Ami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, and Noah Brown, and Alauni Zaccheaus all kind of meshing together and trying to become a wide receiver too. But, Adam Peters, he got aggressive. It has been clear since Adam Peters took over the team 2 Januaries ago now that he is an aggressive GM. He is going to make moves when the time is right. And maybe that time has become sooner than what many people anticipated, but with Jane Daniels and, of course, what we saw from him last season in 2024 and how far Washington was able to go to the NFC Championship game, no one saw that coming. But it opens up the opportunity now to make aggressive moves like this if you're Adam Peters, because Jane Daniels, you didn't know what he was going to be like, right? And last season, pretty much the entire goal of last season was to find out if Jane Daniels was your franchise quarterback. Not only did they find out Jane Daniels was going to be your franchise quarterback, but they found out a whole lot of strengths on this team and a whole lot of weaknesses, and how damn good Jane Daniels can be with the football in his hands. So it was an impressive season, and not only do you have the success of last season, but it opens you up to make moves like this. Now, my thoughts on the trade overall, right? Deebo Samuel, he's coming over from San Francisco. I already mentioned some of his stats and what he had last season. Again, he's not the Deebo Samuel that he once was, but he is 29 years old. He'll be 29 years old going into next season. It'll be his final year of his contract. The guy is a good piece. It's a good piece for Washington. I don't know if I would expect them to sign him to an extension immediately, but I would still, it would be open. I think Deebo's production next season will definitely play a big part of that, especially as a wide receiver entering his age 30 season. You don't want to really be on the wrong side of 30, especially at the wide receiver position. But for next season and this Super Bowl window that Washington surprisingly has open over the next 4 or 5 years until Jane Daniels gets his massive contract, Washington is going to be aggressive to support Jane, and this is a great move. This is a great move. I love it. I kind of became aware of it, 2-3 weeks ago. Seemed there was real interest. I know talking at the Senior Bowl as well, there was definitely some real interest between Deebo Samuel, Adam Peters, and the Washington Commanders. And the longer it went on, the longer I know Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, they kind of reported about early on in the combine that the finalist to land Deebo was Washington and Houston, but all along it really sounds like Washington was the team that was tracking him down and, putting together a package to send over for a guy like Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel, of course, his elusiveness, what he can bring not only on the line of scrimmage, but also in the backfield as well, is huge for this Washington team. And pairing him up with a guy like Cliff Kingsbury, who loves to run these screens, a very creative screen designer, very creative short yardage designer. That is Deebo's strengths. Deebo's biggest strength is what he can do after the catch. And that is something that these Washington receivers lacked last season. And that's what they lacked. And it was a big reason why Washington kind of started to like halt on offense at times, was because Jaden could only do so much in the passing game. And if these receivers weren't getting the yak that they needed to pick up those few extra yards, drives were ending. And I know Washington's offense overall still had a ton of success last season, and that's a big props to what Jane and Cliff were able to do with the scheme and all of that. But this makes it so much easier for a guy like Cliff Kingsbury when drawing up these screen passes. You guys remember these screens that they threw to De'Ami Brown and Alani Zacchaeus on the outside, and they picked up sometimes 3, 4, 5 yards, and get a couple good blocks and all that. That's fine. Deebo and what he brings, he's as one of the best. I know he's kind of on. It's not been great the last couple of years. I mean, it's still been good, but it hasn't been like incredible the last couple of years for Deebo. But what he can still bring athletically to those screenplays and those short yardage situations as a receiver is huge. And that is something that Washington desperately needed and was definitely kind of exposed towards in the playoffs and throughout the second half of the season. So overall, I'm super happy with this trade for Adam Peters and the Washington Commanders. I'm still looking. They haven't said if it's 2025 or 2026 pick yet. It is for a 5th round pick, which, I mean, that is the compensation wise. I tweeted this out about a week ago, I think, where if Deebo, there was some pretty big rumors coming out between Deebo Samuel and the Washington Commanders, some mutual interest there. And I said, if it was for a day 3 pick, I would be all for it. If it was and as time went on, I was like, if it was for a 4th round pick, yeah, that'd be fine. But getting Deebo for a 5th round pick is, I think, good value for every side. I'm assuming Washington is going to be taking on his contract, which I'm going to be looking up in a second here. But overall, I love the trade from Adam Peters, the aggression. Deebo signed, looking at his contract here. Deebo signed a 3-year, $71 million contract with the San Francisco 49ers. His cap number next year will be $15 million. And then his cap number in 2026, which is a void year, will be $33 million. So I'm not exactly entirely sure how that's going to work out. It sounds like Deebo won't be under contract. It's really a 1-year deal, but Washington would take on a majority of that salary, and maybe they want to split it and move some money around, restructure it, make it more front loaded so that Washington has a lot of cap space this season, of course. So they maybe want to take some of that $33 million that's in Deebo's void year in 2026 and move it up to 2025. I'd expect them to probably do that because it looks like cap numbers wise, over the next 2 years, he's going to account for $48 million in cap space. And right now it is very backloaded so that a ton of it is in 2026. But, if I'm Washington and Adam Peters, I'd assume that they're probably going to split that more evenly across the next 2 years, even though he's technically only under contract for 1 more year. Maybe you want to move it all of the cap space to this, all of that cap hit to this season, because again, they have a ton of cap space, about 60, 70 million, but it's really up to them what they want to do there. I assume that Adam Peters and Brendan Sosna as well, who kind of does a lot of the stuff with the cap space for Washington, wants to optimize the cap space over the next few years. So they would want to front load it a little bit more. So I would be on the lookout for a Deebo restructure, just because he has so much. It sounds like he has so much money that is due to him, even when he's not on the team. So that is what I would be looking at. But overall, again, it's a great trade, I feel like, for Washington. It's a move that had to be done. They had to get a wide receiver 2 for Jayden Daniels. Now, how does this, it gives them some more flexibility in the draft, especially now you got a first, a second round pick, and a third round pick. So one in each round, but you technically don't really have to spend one on a wide receiver, especially that first and second round pick. I would still assume Washington is going to be eyeing wide receivers in the draft. I don't know if this move is going to be it for Washington at the receiver room. I assume not, because Alonzo Zaccheaus is a free agent, De'Ami Brown's a free agent, Noah Brown's a free agent. So they're still going to need a few more bodies in that room, but it allows them and gives them some more space to use their first and second picks on other positions and other positions of more need. Because again, wide receiver was a position of need, but I feel like there's definitely some spots in the defense that were exposed more than the wide receiver position last season. So overall, it's a great trade for Washington. This emergency pod was great. I haven't done an emergency pod in a bit. I haven't been, told to or made to yet, but it was great. Washington trading a 5th round pick. Okay, here we go officially. So Adam Schefter says Washington is taking on the remainder of Deebo Samuel's contract and paying his full $17.55 million salary for the 2025 season. So again, that kind of goes back into you only trade Deebo and you only get a 5th round pick back. Well, Washington is taking on that entire rest of the contract. So looking at the cap and all of that, as I mentioned, there is a large cap hit in that void year in 2026 when he's not on the team. So I'm wondering what happens to that cap hit in 2026 and if they can adjust it so that they're not held of $33 million in 2026 for a player not on their team. I think an extension could also kind of adjust that, so you don't have to pay 33, or you're not kind of withheld of 33 million in 2026. So an extension as well could do something with that, which maybe is something that Washington wants to look into as well in the next few days. But yeah, that being said, I think that is it. The Washington Commanders trade for Deebo Samuel, a move that maybe became more obvious in the last few days, but a move that was definitely necessary, in my opinion, for the Washington Commanders. They got him for good value as well. A lot of money to pay him over the next 2 years or next year or so, but I think with the cap space that they have, it's a good fit and it'll be worth it. So that'll be it for this episode of this emergency pod of Keeping Up with Commanders. I will have the Combine recap pod out, of course, on Monday. But yeah, that'll be it for this week's episode or today's episode of Keeping Up with Commanders. See you guys next one. Peace.